Let's look through the old sketchbook. What do we have here? Looks like a comic book I was working on. It was called The Holy Foot. The Holy Foot. I got a breakdown. It's all Italian. Lots of bicycles. This is from a church that is close by. I forget what it's called. It's not Aquarius. It's not Oceana. That's a Björk song. It's something like that. Something like that. I really like this sketch. I think we can blow that up and make something frameable. The inspiration for the Holy Foot came from a story that I'm not sure if it's true, but I can imagine that most Catholic families have a similar story in their background, but basically it begins with a grandmother who kidnaps her grandchild because the grandchild's parents are not going to baptize him. And so the grandmother kidnaps the child and in my story rides the bicycle to the church to try to get an emergency baptism. But of course, the church is not going to baptize a child without the parents' consent, because for one thing, baptism is kind of like a promise on the parents' part that they will raise the child Catholic. But on the other end, the church has to keep a record of who they baptize. And so if you were to baptize a child and not notify the church, there would be no record of it. And so if the child grew up not knowing that he'd been baptized and wanted to convert to Catholicism, he would be baptized twice, and being baptized twice is considered an offense to God. So that is one of the reasons why you should not baptize a child yourself unless it's an emergency situation. But I'll get more into that a little bit later. For now. Right here we have Daniel Smith Artist Masking Fluid. This stuff's really cool. It's kind of expensive, but essentially you paint it on and you let it dry, and then it protects the page itself. So you could make large brush strokes, and then when you rub the stuff off, it reveals the Virgin page. I've only used it once before. But back to my comic book. In the story, it's basically the same concept. The grandmother kidnaps her grandchild because she learns that her grandchild is not going to be baptized. Kidnaps him, takes him in her bicycle, because this is a town of bicycle riders, rushes him to the church, and requests an emergency baptism. And the priest has to tell her that they can't baptize a child without the consent of the parents. And so there's a nun who she's a young nun. She's kind of the most likable character in the story, and she hints that she could baptize the child herself, and the priest agrees reluctantly. And as the nun goes to get the materials to baptize, like the holy water and so forth, the priest explains to the grandmother the dangers of baptizing a child yourself. And this takes place in Italy. So in Italy, before what we know today as the Vatican, used to be a much, much bigger empire, I guess you could possibly say. It was known as the Papal States, and you can Google that. It's most of Italy. The Papal States was most of Italy, and it lost the Papal States. So now I'm going to see if it's dry, and oh, yes, and I spilled coffee on it. Maybe we can still salvage it. I could not save it. It was truly destroyed. So I started up again so that I can have an ending to this video. Sometimes you can save things. This is just not an example of that, unfortunately. But to finish what I was saying about the Papal States, there are countless reasons why the Papal States fell, and eventually the only land that the church would be able to keep was the Vatican, what we now know as the Vatican. But one of the reasons that it is said that we lost the Papal States, or that the Catholic Church lost the Papal States, is that there was a Jewish couple within the Papal States, and they had a child. This child was deathly ill, and before the child died, the servant, who was a Catholic girl, baptized him, and then miraculously the child lived. And so word spread that a miracle had happened, that a Jewish child was baptized at the moment where it was dying and then survived. But it is actually against the law in the Papal States for a non-Catholic to raise a Catholic child. And since this child was baptized, it is officially a Catholic. So the Pope decided to basically take the child and raise him as a Catholic priest. And this child grew up to be a Catholic priest when he turned into an adult. But before he turned to an adult, word spread, and the church was kidnapping children, and so public opinion turned on the church, and that is one of the reasons why one of the reasons socially why people turned against and were fine with invasions and wars. And anyway, that's how they lost the Papal States. And so in my story, the priest would tell that to the grandmother before she baptized her own child, because it is very dangerous to baptize a child without going through the church. It is one of the reasons why the Papal States fell. But anyway, hopefully I can wrap this drawing up and start on something else, because I'm pretty sick of it right now. It was not fun to have to start all over again, but I don't know if this video is going to be very good, but at least I don't know what to tell you. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry if this was not even worth watching. Perhaps it was fun to see me fail, because you don't often get to see people fail, and I obviously have no qualms about showing you failure. So thank you very much.